Check out retroupgrades.co.uk and use code RetroCrisis10 to get a discount on the PC Engine RGB add-on board and the Sega Mega Drive 2 RGB SCART cable. Welcome to Retro Crisis. In today's video I'll be sharing my top 10 PC Engine games, and some of these games were also released for the TurboGrafx-16. Across both platforms there were hundreds of games released, so whittling it down to 10 was actually not an easy feat. And I've also made it much more difficult for myself by limiting my choices to one game per franchise, as I didn't want the list to be full of bonk games. Hopefully this list will also prove to be a good starting off point for those of you that might not be familiar with the PC Engine or TurboGrafx-16. Anyway, I hope you enjoy my selection. Let's begin. Now, I'm not the biggest sports fan, but Final Match Tennis is actually quite fun to play, and that's mostly down to its easy to learn pick up and play control scheme. Most tennis games would live and die by their responsiveness and button input latency, and thankfully Final Match Tennis is very forgiving in that department. Here you can select one of 16 characters, none of which I recognise because the text is all in Japanese, and then you can select which type of court you'd like to play on. For example, you could play on grass or clay. I'm not going to pretend to be a tennis expert because I'm not. I've never even sat through a live match. But for a total novice like me, Final Match Tennis is seriously easy and fun to play. You can even use a multiplayer adapter to connect up to 4 controllers, so you can play a doubles match. While the original Galaga may seem primitive by today's standards, there is a kernel of a great game at its core. Galaga 88 or Galaga 90, depending on which region you're in, gives the original Galaga a new lick of paint and an updated soundtrack to help make Galaga much more appealing to modern audiences of the late 80s. So do expect the same single screen vertical shooting action, but each of the enemies look much better and all the sprites have improved animation too. The PC Engine and TurboGrafx-16 both have games you'd consider to be much better shooters, but I've just got a massive nostalgic soft spot for Galaga. If you've ever played modern games like Advanced Wars, then Nectaris or Military Madness will look very familiar to you. The game takes place on a single screen which is divided into a grid layout, and it's your job to move troops around the grid, placing them into strategic positions to get the best attacking advantage over enemy forces. It's all turn-based, and there's a lot of chess-like strategy involved. And once you're done facing off against the computer, you can face off against a friend in 2-player mode. Ninja Spirit is based on the original arcade game Saigo no Nindo. Ninja Spirit is a side-scrolling platformer in which you need to get yourself through each level whilst combating enemy hordes. Initially it's frustratingly difficult, but with a bit of practice and commitment, you're actually in for a really good time. The extra power-ups help a lot, especially when you begin collecting ninja ghosts to assist you. One of the highlights of the game for me are definitely the huge boss battles. Dragon's Curse may look very familiar to some of you, and that's because it's actually a port of Wonder Boy 3 The Dragon's Trap from the Sega Master System, which was already one of the best games on that console. Dragon's Curse updates the graphics and sound to 16-bit glory, and it's an absolute joy to play. In the game you travel around different environments and you collect different weapons, armor, magic to fight off against all the bad guys. But what's most captivating about the game is that you have the ability to transform into different characters, such as fire-breathing dragons, a mouse that can climb walls, and a hawk that can fly. And there are a few others too. Dragon's Trap is one of my favourite Master System games of all time, so getting to play an upgraded version on the PC Engine is a real treat. If you enjoy open worlds and platformers, you'll love Dragon's Curse. Now, what can I say about Street Fighter 2 that hasn't already been said a million times before? Well, this is hands down the best fighting game on the PC Engine. It's a superb port of the Champion Edition version of Street Fighter 2. The graphics are comparable to the Mega Drive version, while the sound is a tiny bit of a downgrade, but still an incredible effort. At least compared to the World Warrior on the Super Nintendo, the PC Engine version of Street Fighter 2 has the barrel breaking stage, and way more character voice audio samples. But But sadly, the game suffers from the same issue the Mega Drive version does, the severe lack of attack buttons on the controller. So it resorts to the same tricks, where if you want to switch between punches and kicks, you'll have to press the select button. Or like the Mega Drive version, you can just go and purchase a 6-button controller. But despite all that, Street Fighter II Champion Edition is a joy to play. Now here's a genre that seems to have fallen in popularity over the past few decades. How many of you remember playing pinball machines in the arcades? Devil Crash, or Devil Crush depending on your region, is one of the best pixelated console pinball games of all time. Well, at least in my opinion. The controls are simple, you just use the left D-pad button for the left flipper and the 1 button for the right flipper. That's all you need to know. The graphics are vibrant and I love the tiny little monsters that walk around the screen. And it's even more fun to see them get squished by your pinball. Devil Crush is one of those games where you could just switch your brain off and be in a trance whilst playing this. Some of you might recognise Bomberman 94. It was also released as Mega Bomberman on the Sega Mega Drive and Genesis. However, what makes the PC Engine version better is the fact that you can actually play with up to 4 friends in a 5-player battle. And the PC Engine version actually has slightly better graphics. However, I'd have to give it to the Mega Drive version as I think that has slightly better music. Unless you've been living under a rock, the Bomberman formula is very straightforward. You're on a board and you need to strategically plant bombs to blow a path that leads you towards the exit, whilst blowing up some bad guys along the way too. If you ever have friends over and a PC Engine happens to be the only console you own, Bomberman 94 is the game you turn on. Bonk's Revenge is the second entry in the Bonk series. Bonk is essentially PC Engine's Super Mario or Sonic the Hedgehog, or at least the closest would get to a mascot platformer. You jump and climb your way to the end of the levels, whilst bashing all the bad guys with your oversized head. It's a lot more fun than it sounds. The series is consistently amongst the best looking games on the PC Engine. It's a real shame Bonk didn't survive and go on to be a big time mascot like Sonic or Mario, despite having a short term stint on the Super Nintendo and Game Boy. Definitely give Bonk's Revenge a go, especially if you're a platforming fan. The Star Soldier series has been going since about 1986, and barely anybody in the West has ever heard of it. Soldier Blade happens to be the 4th entry in the series. It's a vertical space shoot 'em up, and boy does it deliver. It's super fast with barely any sprite flicker. In regards to the graphics, it's a technical achievement for the PC Engine, especially with the large boss sprites at the end of each level, and the ridiculously overpowered power-ups. I'd say if there was one vertical shooter to own on the PC Engine, Soldier Blade is it. It was a close one between this and Blazing Lasers for me, but I just slightly prefer Soldier Blade, due to its buttery smooth gameplay and god-tier graphics and super cool music. Anyway, that was my top 10 PC Engine games of all time. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Were there any games I missed, or maybe some that I should have swapped out for something different? I hope you enjoyed this video. This has been Retro Crisis, thank you for watching.